we are going to look at the DOM elements. Let's take a peek and see what that means. All right, if you remember when we first introduced the course, we're talking, I showed preview of what DataTables does, but just to recap, the DOM elements are these light blue items on your report. So we're talking about, pagination, filtering, some information, and how many pages or how many items you show on a page. So that's what the DOM elements represent. But let's dig in a little bit further and see what that means. In DataTables, they have default controls for what the DOM elements mean. So let's look at what happens, what you can actually set, remove, and change, all right? So L stands for the length changing input control, and that represents this. So if you do not include it in your DOM structure, it will just not appear. And all of this stuff is subjective. So if you feel like you want to display it, you should leave it. But if you don't want this kind of an attribute on your report, we simply don't include it in our DOM element. And we'll practice that exercise in a minute. All right, the F stands for filtering input, or what I like to refer to as the search. Most times I include that on there because that is one of the benefits of the report, but there will be instances where you just want to display a little bit of information to a user, like let's just say a balance sheet, and it has totals, and you don't want them to be able to search it. You just want to have a simple report. So you would remove that feature. T represents the table, and that's in this blue outline. So that is really, needs to be there because otherwise it would not display. And it kind of sets the tone. Is it above or below the table when we construct this? I stands for information, or the table information summary, and it is represented by this area here. What are you seeing on the screen? So are you seeing, because you're showing 10, there's 57 records. If you threw a search on there, it would change it a little bit and say you're showing 4 of 57 records. So this is information that you can turn on or off by displaying the I feature of the DOM. P represents pagination control, and that's this area down here where we show, depending on how many elements or what value you set in your entries here, you're gonna, and the number of records you have down here, it will add those up so that you can let your user load their page at a way that you want. Again, all of this you have control over, and we will look at those in the lessons coming up. R stands for processing display element. It's not on here, but imagine what that is if you're loading a large data set and you really want to let the user know somehow that it's processing, they would use that. We're really not going to be using that in this example, but it is there. And so you know what that looks like or what R represents when you see it in code. So now we're in the builder, and I'm just showing you where this happens, where we're going to set it in the tool. All right, so within the JS function, there is, my template has this word DOM with the DOM position being substituted out. You can see down here that it's evaluated. So how do we set that? Right now it's default. I have it just being that, but it does allow you to control it. When you're in the JS function and you hit this gear icon, it's going to pop up this tool where we get to change settings. So right now we're talking about the DOM position, and I have in there this out of the box default, and we'll look at that more closely in the demo. All right, let's look a little bit further on the things of what this looks like, because it's not very user-friendly. I'm going to just show you some examples here so you can kind of understand and explain. Out of the box, if the default is not set and you do not have an overriding CSS like Bootstrap or something like that, this is the default. If you don't declare it, it's going to come up LFRTIP. That's really hard to read, but what it means is that the length, the filter, and the processing are all going to come above the table, and then the information and the pagination are going to become below the table. Okay, here's another example. You can exclude an option and it removes it from the view, and that's what I kind of talked about. So in this case, I removed the filtering or the search box. So when we go look at that, there's going to be no search option for the user. So that's how simple it is to remove something so somebody can't see it. There's also another way, but just in all overall, if you don't want it included, don't include it in your DOM, and then there's no choice for the user. Over here, I'm telling you that you can actually show a DOM element more than one time. So in this case, we're showing pagination both above and below the table. So, hey, I want to see how many go to page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the top and at the bottom. So those are just things that you can control. Everything can be repeated except for the table. That can only be included one time. All right. And then there's a couple other more advanced topics that we'll get to later. But basically, it's saying you can add classes and div tags to this structure to be able to allow you to customize it, right? Out of the box, it's just going to come how the format's going to look like DataTables has it, or your CSS, Bootstrap, whatever, is going to create that with its own element style. But in the future, we'll modify these so that they can be more attractive in what you want to do. But this is just an example of showing you that in a class called top, the information's in the header. Then there's the table. And a class called bottom, we have the filtering, length, and pagination. So it's kind of the user's been, in that case, developers setting what they want that to look like. And then finally, again, a further advanced topic we will get to is adding additional extensions and plugins to the DOM. And in this case, I'm showing you that we've added this B, which is representing of buttons. And that's something I kind of showed as one of the benefits that you can have. But we will look at how to do it in the future. But just so you guys understand, these are examples of what the DOM, how the DOM can be constructed, and to get you thinking about where your placement of this would be. So now we're going to hop over to the demo and just try a few of these things to show you the illustrative purposes of the power of the DOM and what it does right away to your report. We are in the demo file 2.2 DOM elements. Let's hit the quick start option. Last time we looked at the video libraries, and now we're going to do our normal action of duplicating this report and working on changing where the positioning or the visibility of the DOM elements are. So let's hit the settings option. Let's do our action of duplicating this record. All right, and let's just get it renamed so that we know what we are working on when we come back in the future. And let's make this be video 2.2 DOM elements. All right, go ahead and submit and close. You can see it's the exact same report, version of version. And what we're going to do now is look at modifying the settings on the DOM, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So here we are. We have a couple. They're kind of out of place, but let's go look where you change this. Let's hit the JS function tab. And you can see here that I have it in the actual code, and we're substituting the words DOM position with values here. And that is right here in the context. So how did I get that value right there? Let's hit this icon here. That's the gear settings to go in to edit the JS settings. All right, what pops up is the card window. And what we're looking at is this feature right here. What I want to prove to you or point out, if you hover over it, it's going to remind you what those codes are. So that's hopefully helpful on what you're actually trying to put in there. But I am going to just clear this out to show you something. I remember I talked about if you don't provide any value in it there at all, it's going to put its defaults. So let's go back to the preview tab, and you can see that it looks basically the same. So what I had put in there as a default is pretty much close to their default. All right. But I want to go and show you guys how we can go modify this. So in the case, to make it really easy, let's remove the search feature. And how do we do that? Back to the JS function, hit your gear icon. And if you remember, we kind of want to, how should I say this? We can hover over it and see what we want, but let's do what we did in the video, or to be able to prove what the default is without the search. So I'm going to put the L for the length at the top. I'm not going to put the processing for the R because I don't think we needed it. Then I'm going to show the T for the table. And then below, I'm going to add the I for information and the P for pagination. All right. So L tip, hard to see, but let's go ahead and submit that and then come over to the preview and see what it changes. Awesome. Right now we're showing the L. The search has been removed because we took it out. And at the bottom, I expect to see both the information and the paginations. Let's scroll down. All right, information, pagination, cool. Now let's go change it and add the pagination to the top and the bottom and see what that looks like. So back to the JS function, hit your template, and let's do length, then pagination, then the table, and see what that looks like. All right, come back. And now you can see length, pagination, info, and pagination again. Let's go back to our function and turn the way it was back on. And I'm just going to delete it here so we can have the defaults one more time. And now we have search and pagination back to the way we were. And in the next lesson, we're going to look at in the next lessons, we're going to look at these individual things and how we can change and set those and how they work.